Rejected at a five-star restaurant. A single dad gets a life-changing dinner invite from a millionaire widow. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. The wind bit at Daniel's collar as he held his daughter's hand and crossed the marble-tiled threshold of Le Riviere, the city's most refined and most unforgiving dining establishment. Inside, the world changed. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. A piano played somewhere in the background. Silver shimmered on white linen. Daniel's breath caught, not from awe, but from the awareness of how out of place they must seem. His blazer was dated, the sleeves a little short. His shoes, though polished, showed their years. But he'd shaved that afternoon, pressed his shirt twice, and made sure Lily's braid was neat. She wore a lavender dress, a hand-me-down from a neighbor, but it sparkled under the chandelier like something royal. It was her birthday. She was turning 7. They stepped up to the hostess stand. The maître d', tall, angular, and immaculately groomed, glanced at them without moving his smile. "Reservation name?" he asked coolly. Daniel hesitated. "Actually, we were hoping to walk in. It's my daughter's birthday, and I see," the man cut in, his smile tightening. His eyes flicked over Daniel's collar, down to Lily's sneakers. "Unfortunately, we are fully booked for the evening. And we do have a formal dress code." Daniel nodded slowly, lips parting in a practiced smile, the kind that says thank you anyway when what he wants to say is something else entirely. He felt eyes on his back, patrons pausing mid-bite, watching with mild interest, like a scene they'd seen before. He turned to Lily, who was still beaming at the ceiling lights. "Come on, sweetheart," he said gently. "We'll find somewhere else." She looked up, confused. "But I thought—" "I know," he said quickly, brushing her cheek. "Let's go have our adventure. Pancakes, remember?" They started toward the door. His spine ached with the weight of trying to walk tall. Each step rang louder than the last. He didn't look back, but someone else did. In the far corner, tucked behind a half-drawn curtain, a woman had been watching. She'd seen the girl's excitement at the entrance, the pride in the father's posture, the slow erosion of both under the maître d's practiced dismissal. Her table for two had been a table for one for years now. She didn't expect it to change. But now, as the girl's birthday crown slipped in her hair and the man reached for the door with a trembling breath, something inside her shifted. She stood. A waiter approached, eyes wide. "Mrs. Whitmore?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked past him, quiet heels on velvet carpet, until she was behind the man and child just steps from the exit. "Excuse me," she said softly. Daniel paused. He turned, unsure. The woman's voice was calm, certain. "If you don't mind, I'd love for you both to join me for dinner." The room went still. Daniel blinked. Lily stared. And just like that, the night stopped unraveling. It had just begun again. From her corner by the window, Evelyn sat with a half-empty wine glass and an untouched entree. The candle flickered gently, casting long shadows on the fine porcelain and crystal that surrounded her. She'd lost count of how many evenings she'd sat in that same spot, alone with memory and routine. But tonight, something broke through the stillness. She had seen them the moment they entered, father and daughter, carrying more hope than they likely realized. She watched as the hostess offered no warmth, as judgment replaced hospitality, as the little girl's birthday joy dimmed with each clipped word. It stirred something. Not pity, something deeper. She stood, slowly but purposefully, ignoring the startled glance from her waiter. As the man and his daughter neared the door, Evelyn stepped forward, her voice calm but unmistakable. "Excuse me, would you join me for dinner?" Daniel turned, startled. He looked from her to the maître d', unsure if this was some new kind of insult. Lily clutched his arm, confused. Evelyn didn't wait for him to find words. She crouched slightly, meeting Lily's wide eyes. "I was hoping for company tonight," she said, offering a soft smile. "Would you help me finish my birthday dessert?" Lily glanced at her father, then back at the elegant stranger. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's my birthday, too." Evelyn's smile deepened, a shimmer of something brightening her otherwise steady composure. "Then it must be fate," she said. Daniel hesitated, still standing halfway out the door, dignity bruised, unsure what kindness looked like anymore. But Evelyn's sincerity was impossible to ignore. She wasn't performing. She was reaching out. The maître d' cleared his throat nervously. "Mrs. Whitmore, shall I prepare another table?" "No," she replied. "They'll dine with me." It wasn't a suggestion. The shift was immediate. Chairs were pulled. Napkins unfolded. Two new place settings appeared beside her own, and suddenly, her once empty table transformed. Daniel seated Lily beside Evelyn, then eased into the seat opposite. He looked around the room, still tense, still uncertain. Evelyn noticed. They stare because they don't know what kindness looks like anymore, she said simply. He nodded, unsure how to reply. A server arrived with a fresh pitcher of water. Evelyn ordered with ease, requesting dishes Daniel had never even heard of but was too polite to question. Lily, however, grinned as she saw her favorite, creamy pasta with cheese, whispered discreetly between Evelyn and the waiter. The awkwardness slowly ebbed. Outside the window, city lights danced across glass and stone. Inside, the table filled not just with food, but with something richer: connection. Evelyn folded her napkin, her expression soft. You both gave me a gift tonight, she said. Daniel tilted his head. We did. She looked at Lily, then at him. You reminded me that joy isn't just for the young. It's for the brave. And just like that, what began as rejection became an invitation. One that neither of them knew they'd been waiting for. Lily leaned over the edge of the chair, wide-eyed, marveling at the folded napkin shaped like a swan. She picked up a spoon and held it like a wand, giggling as the reflection in its curve stretched her face. The table shimmered with polished silverware and bone china that looked too delicate to touch. Everything sparkled, like it belonged in a fairy tale, not in the same evening that had nearly ended in disappointment. Daniel shifted in his seat, pretending to study the menu though the prices made his stomach twist. One dish cost more than his week's groceries. He cleared his throat and set it down, offering a polite nod to Evelyn. Without missing a beat, she gave a knowing smile and waved for the waiter. Let's make it simple, she said. The filet for you, Daniel, and the truffle pasta for Lily. He opened his mouth to object, but her eyes softened. It's my pleasure, truly. As the first course arrived, conversation unfolded like the linen napkins. Evelyn began with stories, ones polished by time, but still sharp with memory. She spoke of her husband, Harold, a man who built a small shipping company into an international name. He played saxophone in college, she said, swirling her wine, and insisted jazz was the only real music. Daniel smiled, drawn in despite himself. He once funded a scholarship for a student he met at a bus stop, she added. Said the boy reminded him of who he used to be. Lily chewed quietly, listening with wide eyes. And you? Evelyn asked gently. What did you do before life shifted? Daniel hesitated, glancing at his daughter. Then he leaned forward, elbows just off the pristine cloth. I taught English at Lincoln High. Literature, mostly. Shakespeare, Baldwin, Angelo. I loved it, he said. But then I got hurt helping a student break up a fight. Herniated disc. Long story short. No more long days on my feet, and the school moved on without me. Evelyn's expression didn't change. She simply listened, no pity, just presence. My wife left a few months after that, he added softly. Said she needed more than what I had left. Silence filled the space for a moment, but not unkindly. It was the kind of silence that held room for pain without judgment. Then, Lily broke it by doing an uncanny impression of their grumpy downstairs neighbor. You can't park there. That's for residents only. She squawked, chin raised. Evelyn burst into laughter, the kind that starts in the chest and surprises the mouth. Her hand flew to her chest. You have talent, young lady. Daniel watched her, and something inside him settled. He couldn't remember the last time he'd seen someone truly enjoy his daughter's silliness, or the last time his own laughter didn't feel like borrowed air. The clinking of cutlery, the comfort of shared stories, the warmth blooming across the table, it wasn't just a meal. It was rediscovery, of voice, of worth, of human connection. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel wasn't calculating his next step. He was simply present. Dessert had melted into conversation. The plates were nearly cleared, the last crumbs of chocolate torte resting beside untouched sprigs of mint. A soft hush settled over the table. One born not from silence, but from contentment. Lily leaned against her father's arm, sleepiness beginning to win. Daniel ran his fingers over the edge of the tablecloth, his mind chasing the check he knew would be steep. He reached for his wallet with slow deliberation. Let me, at least cover our part, he said quietly, already aware the offer was more symbolic than practical. Evelyn set her napkin down, folding it with graceful finality. Daniel, she said gently, this evening was a gift. For me. Please don't rob me of the joy of giving it. His hand froze. There was no superiority in her tone, only sincerity. From nearby tables, subtle glances exchanged. A few guests nodded with quiet admiration, but not everyone approved. A man at the far end of the room, portly and overdressed, leaned back in his chair with a scoff that cut through the quiet. "What's next?" he muttered, loud enough to carry. "Feeding charity cases on silver platters?" Utensils paused. A server stiffened mid-step. The maitre d' pretended not to hear. Daniel's jaw tensed. He stood, gently lifting Lily from her seat. "We'll be on our way," he said, keeping his voice even, his pride intact. But Evelyn rose too, slowly but deliberately. She turned to face the man, her frame poised yet unshaken. "What's truly cheap," she said, her voice clear and unwavering, "is judging kindness from a cushioned seat." The man opened his mouth, but no words came. Eyes turned away. No one rushed to his defense. Daniel looked at Evelyn, his throat tight. The strength she carried wasn't in her wealth or status. It was in the way she used both without ever making them the point. His voice wavered. "I didn't know people like you still existed." She smiled, a little sadly. "Maybe we're both finding that out tonight." Then Lily, still clutching her birthday balloon, reached out and hugged Evelyn without a word. "Thank you, fancy grandma," she whispered against her coat. Evelyn laughed softly, touched beyond what she could explain. The moment rippled through the room. The frost in the air thawed. A few diners smiled. One elderly couple raised their glasses. Even the staff, previously rigid with protocol, softened around the edges. Daniel held back tears. "You didn't just give us dinner. You gave her a memory she'll carry for the rest of her life." Evelyn looked at him, her voice low. "And you reminded me what it's like to feel life again." There was no applause. No grand declaration. Just a shared silence filled with more meaning than words could carry. As they stepped out into the cool night, the door closed behind them. On judgment, on loneliness, on that chapter of pain. And something else opened. Something better. 3 days after the dinner, Daniel's phone rang just as he was folding laundry. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. He almost let it go to voicemail. Something told him to answer. "Mr. Clark?" came a warm, professional voice. "My name is Natalie Vargas. I run the Northbridge Community Learning Center. Evelyn Whitmore spoke very highly of you. Said you were once the kind of teacher who made literature come alive." Daniel blinked. The laundry slipped from his hands. She continued, "We're expanding our evening classes for adults. Nothing full-time yet, but we'd love to have you lead a reading and writing course. Are you interested?" His voice caught before it made it out. Yes, I'd be honored." It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't salvation. But it was a door, and it was open. That same afternoon, Evelyn returned to the restaurant alone. The maitre d' greeted her with the kind of warmth that hadn't been there before. She didn't miss the changed tone in his voice, or the way nearby staff straightened their posture when she passed. Not out of fear. Out of something closer to respect. Her table, always waiting, suddenly felt less lonely. Later that week, she met Daniel again. But this time, not under chandeliers or gilded ceilings. Just a modest cafe on a quiet street, the kind with chipped mugs and scratched tables. No reservations required. No performance necessary. Daniel arrived a few minutes early. Evelyn was already there, sipping black coffee and reading a weathered copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. "Still the best opening line in fiction," she said without looking up. He smiled and sat down across from her. "And here I thought I was the teacher." They talked. Not about status or debts, but about life. About the strangeness of starting over in the middle of everything. She mentioned her creaky old kitchen faucet. He offered to fix it. "I'm decent with tools," he added. "Not much money, but plenty of WD-40. She laughed. "That's worth more than half the people I've hired." Weeks passed. A routine unfolded, unwritten, unspoken. Evelyn dropped by to help Lily with reading. Lily returned the favor by teaching her the lyrics to her favorite animated movie. Daniel, in turn, repaired what needed fixing: her faucet, a wobbly step, a mailbox that had stuck shut for years. The changes were small, but they stacked. Quietly, steadily. Daniel walked with lighter steps. He no longer glanced at receipts twice. Evelyn, once encased in stillness, found herself reaching for more than just her memories. Nothing about their connection was forced. It wasn't a rescue. It was recognition. Two people, both broken in different places, finding that when they leaned gently toward each other, neither had to fall. Outside the cafe one morning, Evelyn watched Lily skip ahead and whispered to Daniel, She's strong because you let her be. He looked at her with quiet gratitude. She's strong because someone reminded me I still had something to give. And so, the door didn't just reopen. It stayed open. The scent of rosemary and garlic filled Evelyn's kitchen, warm and grounding. Her home, once so quiet it echoed, now pulsed with gentle life. The laughter drifting from the stovetop wasn't loud, but it filled the space in a way silence never could. Daniel stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, carefully slicing tomatoes under Evelyn's watchful eye. She offered playful instructions while Lily, apron tied crookedly around her waist, stood on a stool beside them, proudly stirring the pot. "This smells better than any restaurant," she declared. Evelyn chuckled. "That's because you helped make it." The home itself was understated. No grand chandelier, no marble floors, but everything in it spoke of care. Family photos framed in wood. A worn bookshelf near the fireplace. Candles flickered on the dining table already set for three, with soft linen and mismatched plates Evelyn insisted had more charm that way. Dinner was simple. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, a salad with too many olives, thanks to Lily's generous taste. But the magic wasn't in the food, it was in the easy rhythm of belonging. They ate slowly, stories flowing between bites. Evelyn recalled a sailing trip that went hilariously wrong. Daniel offered tales from his night classes, how one student wrote a poem about coffee that made the whole room laugh. Lily chimed in with jokes, most of which made no sense, but still earned laughter. After the plates were cleared, Evelyn disappeared briefly, returning with a cake. It was homemade, slightly uneven, topped with white frosting and candles flickering in dim light. She set it down and smiled. "To new beginnings." Lily's eyes sparkled. "Do I get to blow them out?" "Of course," Evelyn said. "This is your wish to make, too." The girl closed her eyes tight, took a deep breath, and blew. For a moment, no one spoke. They just watched the smoke curl into the air, like a ribbon disappearing into something new. Daniel looked across the table, his gaze settling on Evelyn, not with hesitation, but ease. He didn't feel like a guest anymore, not even a visitor. He felt like he belonged there, not because he'd earned it, but because someone had opened a door and meant it. Evelyn, watching him in return, felt something loosen in her chest. Not grief, but release. She hadn't imagined this kind of peace could return. But here it was, wearing a crooked apron and telling knock-knock jokes. She reached across and took Daniel's hand. "I'm glad you walked into that restaurant," she said. He squeezed her fingers gently. "I'm glad you stopped us from walking out." The night stretched on without urgency. No one checked a watch. No one glanced at a phone. The only thing that mattered was the space they shared. In the flickering candlelight, the once empty chair beside Evelyn, once a painful reminder of what was gone, now held something entirely new. Not a replacement, not a distraction, but a beginning. And for the first time in a long time, Evelyn's heart didn't feel hollow. It felt full, and completely, unexpectedly home. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you are watching from, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Mention the names Evelyn, Daniel, and little Lily. What part touched your heart the most? Would you have reacted like Evelyn did in that restaurant? Have you ever experienced kindness from a stranger that changed everything? Your feedback means the world to us and helps us bring you more uplifting stories that inspire, heal, and connect. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss a new release.